Well, what do you do if you are laid off? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon. This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thanks so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, if you got a question for me, I want to invite you to go to the website at www.prudentmoney.com. Once you get to the site, make sure that you go to the top of the page, and there is a link that you can click, and it says Ask Prudent Money, and you send your question. We'll get you taken care of. It's that easy. If you need resources, an opinion, anything that you need, you can get that taken care of at prudentmoney.com. Well, today we're going to continue our talk from, I guess, yesterday about getting laid off. What's the employment situation looking like in America? We set up the discussion on what you do, which we're talking about today, by talking about all of the layoffs that are kind of, in some ways, silently occurring. And given the reasons given for it are not necessarily economic reasons, which leads you to believe, and in some layoff announcements, they were just quite to the point, saying this is AI, artificial intelligence induced layoffs, which is not necessarily what you want to see. But we're going to talk about today. We're going to continue this and talk about the steps that you should take and how you should approach this from a steward of what God has given to you to a practical sense. But before I get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about the latest pop culture finance piece that came across my inbox. And I talk about this to, once again, give you the other side of the story and to give you something to compare it against, because everybody, I mean, there's a big rush today for buying gold, and generally that starts to occur once inflation picks up, and the gold marketers just come out of the woodworks, ready to sell you physical gold. And let me read this to you, and I'm going to give you some thoughts along the way. And like I said, I like to go through this exercise to show you what pop culture finance is that you ought to do, so that you can get a real good idea of what this means, what's it stand for, and all those good things. It says, the case for gold. If you've heard people talking a lot recently about buying gold, it's because the precious metals price has hit record highs this year. What's the rush to buy? Gold, my friend, is a hedge against inflation, aka it helps your money keep its value. It's a safe haven during economic instability and offers diversification. Spreads out your risk. Let's stop there and talk a little bit about a hedge against inflation. If we had runaway inflation, what is a bar of gold really going to do for you? Are you going to chop it up and use it to pay for a loaf of bread? Are you going to pay your rent with it? Are you going to pay your house payment with you? Where, as far as a hedge against inflation, if you transfer dollars and put it into gold, technically they hold the value as gold would hold it, but you can't physically use it. And this is, somewhat of a big issue. They say it's a safe haven. If you go back and you look at the price of gold, it is a very volatile investment. And for someone who thinks it's a safe haven, may be very disappointed that it's maybe not such a safe haven, that it actually does lose money. It's not like the U.S. dollar. In fact, I would even argue the U.S. dollar is more of a safe haven than gold is. Let's see, what else they say. It helps your money keep its value. If everything went back to the gold standard, which is not going to happen, and I'll tell you why, and this is just my opinion, Why I think that we'll never see anything like that happen is because the politicians, if you go back to the gold standard, the politicians lose control over the money supply. And they're not going to do anything. That's why they're going to the cyber currency, and where they have full 100% control over the money. Here is the next sentence. If you're looking for an easy way in, consider a gold IRA, where you'll get the same tax advantage as you would with a traditional or Roth IRA. Here's more on how to know if that move is for you. You're nearing retirement. As you approach your non-working years, investing in gold means that your savings are less tied to market variability and you preserve your money. That could be true. That could be not true. As always, pop culture finance speaks in absolute truths. Like, this is the way it is, but it's really not always that way, and can be volatile. You want to diversify. That's the only thing in the entire marketing ad that I agree with. You do want to diversify, and you can diversify with gold. I wouldn't go and buy 60, 70, 80% of my IRA in gold, but if you wanted to put 10, 15% in gold, I think that makes a good diversification. Then this last one makes absolutely no sense. You have the financial bandwidth. Gold isn't cheap, and for that reason, you should make sure you can afford to buy it without fully sacrificing earning more in other places. If you make a 10% return on gold versus a 10% on a stock, what is the big difference? I'll leave that for you. But here is what you really need to know, is that at the top of the page of this piece, which is designed to look like an educational piece, but it is a marketing piece, it says CNBC Select independently determines what we cover and recommend. We earn a commission from affiliate partners and on many offers and links. So I think that kind of takes care of itself. So if you do get laid off, what do you do? Now, as I said yesterday, I'm not here to spread doom and gloom or act as if the employment market's just going to go to pieces. Nothing like that. Actually, I'm a very positive person. The only other side of the coin is of what's going on is the negativity, and you've got to compare what's going on the positive side with what's going on the negative side, and figure out where you stand and what you believe. I'm a big believer in that process. In order to control your emotions, you have to have the game plan together, and this is what we're talking about. It's about knowing your numbers. I've talked, or knowing the unknowns. And I will tell you that if you go through this process of getting information about your financial situation, you'll be so much better off, and you'll feel a little bit more of a sense of control over your situation. I've seen it in my own personal life. I've seen this with many people I've worked with through the years, that they gain a lot of confidence by going through this process. It is important to have your go-to verses. And I'm a big believer in, I think there's over 11,000 verses in the Bible, something like that. And I was in quiet time this morning, I was reading through some notes that I had taken on, and find that God's word is just so very powerful. You're going, yeah, well, you obviously haven't read the Bible before. And you know how it is. You go to any verse in the Bible and you read it a second time, a third time, a fourth time, or you come up, you can read it numerous times, and it speaks to you in numerous ways. Well, I call these the go-to verses. You can have as many as you want, but if you find yourself in a fearful position. And remember, at any given time, you can either be coming from a position of love, which is a position of God, or a position of fear, which is a position of ego. And if you want to get rid of that fear, you want to get rid of that ego, and you just want to relax in God's financial will for your life. And I believe He does have a financial will for us. And just meditate on these verses. For me, my two go-to verses are Jeremiah 29:11, which reads, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." Now, does that mean that anywhere in there, is there anything that's not a confident statement? And unless you just think that the Bible is absolutely full of errors and some of it's true and none of it's true, or partial parts of it are true, then yeah, maybe you don't buy into it. But for I know the plans I have for you. He knows what's going on in your life. He knows what you're going to go through. He's in control of everything. And His plans are to prosper you. And no, I'm not talking about financial abundance. I'm talking about life, prosper us with life. That could mean financial abundance, or it could not. But prosper tends to get that label on money assigned to it. Plans to give you hope, so you have hope and a future. So that's one of them. The second one is Philippians 4:6-7. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. And the peace of God, which is what we look for, it's the most important thing about prayer, that you get that peace of God before you go out and you make a decision or act on a decision, which transcends all understanding. You might not really fully understand why God's calling you to do one thing or another, but you will. But today it transcends all understanding. Will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. I mean, that's just powerful stuff. The Bible is not there as to just throw that you take these verses lightly. I mean, this is God's word, and sometimes I think we forget that. Oh yeah, that verse in Mark or Luke, yeah, what a great verse, and I'm not sure it really applies to me. It all applies to you, and God's got you where you need to be. So, and we got to do our part too. We've definitely got to do our part, and that's what gets in the way sometimes. Most times, is that we kind of switch back from that love position, God position, to the ego position. Just remember, though, that God's plans are here to give you hope and a future. Okay, now, inventory of assets. Inventory of assets is the very first thing that you are going to do. And get all your statements, put your statements together, and put down retirement accounts and non-retirement accounts. Now, retirement accounts would be your 401k, your IRA, your Roth IRA, could be an annuity. And then your non-retirement accounts could be money that you invested that was after tax. And it could be that you're saving and investing for a wedding, saving and investing for a new house, or whatever it is. Or there could be a number of things you could be saving and investing for, but it's outside of your retirement accounts. And then you've got your cash accounts, and you want to make a note of how much cash and how much really in any of these accounts, how much money is in it. And then, of course, I mentioned your corporate 401k plan. And don't forget that if you have left a 401k plan with another company, you really want to get that in and consolidate it. And that's what we're trying to do with this step one, really, is to take inventory and consolidate investments into one big plan. I think it's important to really be able to keep an eye on investments and have them in one place and have an advisor, and I do have a bias towards that, but have an advisor help you with your plan, especially if you've gone through. Like, there's two big advantages here. To already have that done, you can go straight to your numbers and your information, and you're not adding things up or trying to figure things up. Your financial advisor should have all that put together by the time you hit his or her office and sit down and go, okay, what are we going to do? It's very, very important. Now, I didn't say sell everything, start over, and reinvest. You want to be very careful. The whole idea is to get it into one place, one institution, to where you can see everything. You can decide if your risk level is too high, and that is something that you want to do in this process, is determine that you're comfortable with your risk level. The risk level is what you might want to tinker with a little bit to reduce risk if you feel so led to do so. But it's important to have a good idea of what that risk level is. Don't lock it up. So let's say that you go to an advisor, you strike up a relationship, you like the advisor, you get laid off or you don't get laid off, and you consolidate all your assets into one place. And of course, he's got his thoughts or she's got her thoughts, and they want to reinvest your money, or they want to do something different with it. If you feel comfortable with it, and that's great. If you want to get a second opinion, that's great too. But the bottom line is, don't lock it up unless you are sure you won't need it. Because some things like, let's just take for example, annuities. You have to lock those up for a time period. Well, what if you need that money? Now, granted, if it's a 401k plan, you certainly, an old 401k plan, let's say that, you certainly want to make sure that that you haven't locked it up. But if even if you have and you're under the age 59 and a half, you're going to take a big hit. So you've got to be able to really look at these assets and make sure that that you've got a good handle on what you have and what you can access. And also, if you have a 401k plan that you're a current 401k plan that you're not too enamored with, you can always move that. If you're over the age 59 and a half, you can always move that in most cases from your company that you work for over to an IRA. So you want to keep that in mind as well. Number two, if you're married, what is and your spouse works outside the home, what is his or her income? You'll want to know what Social Security. You want to get those numbers together. If you're renting anything from the standpoint of, say you own some real estate and you're renting, what kind of income is that kicking off? And then if you got a severance package, that's important to factor in there as well, because what we're looking to do, we're looking to go over all your assets and figure out how much what I call shelf life you have. In other words, how long can you go without collecting a paycheck? And fortunately, it's something. We've got unemployment insurance benefits that would be coming your way. You have a severance package, maybe hopefully that would be coming your way. And then you, depending on where you are as far as retirement goes, you may be in a situation where you can retire. I've seen that happen many times, and I'll tell you the one thing that it ends up coming down to. It comes down to, do you have your health insurance covered, and is it Medicare at age 65? That's one of the unfortunate things about Medicare, is that between today, if you're 59 or 60, and you have the 5-year time period between that and Medicare, you'll find that anything that's outside of a corporation, if you get laid off, is expensive. And of course, that's one of the big things that the politicians have been arguing over when it comes to shutting the government down, the health insurance business is broken. Number 3, if you do have your investments invested, you want to make sure that you have a plan B, and make sure that you know what positions to take if the market starts to shift, if the risk level shoots up or anything like that. You want to know exactly what steps do I take to, and with advisors, it's hit and miss. Some believe that you do have a plan B. Some believe you just stay invested. I think that you should have a plan B, but there's no reason, in my opinion, there's no reason to lose money when the market goes down. There's always something that works. You just have to figure it out as an advisor. Now, you take all this information, you figure out what's your shelf life, and this is an important number that you come up with. And to get to that shelf life, you have to determine what your spending looks like, and how can you cut your spending back and really work with and explain to and this is a great teaching time for your kids about life. Hey, sometimes layoffs happen, and this is we have less income coming in than we did before the layoff, and everything's going to be okay. Just we're going to have to cut back. We're not going to be able to maybe take that family vacation we wanted to. But we got to get this taken care of first. And as far as for you in that situation, I would say you got to hit the ground running, and you really got to make sure that you're not. I wouldn't take a break. I really wouldn't. I would take this time and really hit the pavement and find a replacement job inside your same career, or maybe consider something else. And then, and we kind of talked about this, but make sure that health insurance options, you understand what they are, and also life insurance options. You could have your life insurance through the company, and if you do, and you need to do an assessment on, do I even need the life insurance policy, and what all that means. And so by the time you get through that entire list, you should have a very good idea of what your shelf life is. And if you say, well, I've got 8 months here to find something else. Well, at some point during that 8 months, you're probably going to need to take out a part-time job. So you want to be thinking about that too, because it's going to be important for you to bring additional money into the family coffers. But listen, if you got any questions or anything at all, or you want to run by something with me as a second opinion, you're always welcome to go to the website, bob@prudentmoney.com, and send me a question. I'll get you taken care of. Hey, this is Bob Brooks, and you've been listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Listen, if you got a question for me, please go to the website, www.prudentmoney.com, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.